Hi everyone, welcome back to Social Studies for today. We're going to continue talking about important documents. Before we go into our reading today, we're going to take a look at this picture here. Read to yourself, what does this title say? Read it in your head, please. It says, how do we examine sources? So that is a great question. But first we need to know, what is a source? If we are going to examine sources, what is a source? Think about that. A source is anything or place from which something comes, arises, or is obtained. So typically we get information from sources. We can get different old documents from sources. There are many different things that we can get from sources. So when we're looking at sources, you always want to look at who the author is and who the creator of that document is. So as we go through our lesson today, I want you to think about who the author of the Constitution is, and then think about these questions too. Who is the author? So who made it? Who created this source? What was their role in this event or the situation? And are they a primary source or a secondary source? We're not going to really talk about primary and secondary sources too much yet, but just keep those words in the back of your head for future lessons. A primary source is something that is taken from the actual event, so a first person's point of view. A secondary source is written about that primary source. So for example, maybe somebody took a picture of a civil rights protest. That picture is a source. That's a primary source. If somebody were then to go write an article about that picture, or they were to go write a newspaper column about that picture, that would be a secondary source because they're talking about that first source. I don't want to confuse you though, so like I said, not going to talk too much about those right now. Purpose. What is the purpose of this source? So when was the source created? Why was it made? What was the source made around the time of the events or much later? And is the source trying to persuade, inform, or entertain? The last thing I want you to keep in mind as we're going through our lesson today is format. Format just means how was the source created and what was it made of? So think about that for the Constitution as we're doing our lesson today, and we can come back to these questions at the end. So going into the Constitution, I am going to read our passage here, starting at the very top. The Constitution of the United States provides the structure of our government. It provides our natural rights and defines our civil rights. These rights include the right to live, to be free, and to create opportunities to be happy. We all have the right to be treated equally. Tribes, states, and cities have constitutions. The Constitution defines the power of the government. It ensures that no branch has too much power. It also limits how much government can be in our lives. The Constitution checks the balance of power so that the power remains with the people. The preamble defines the responsibility of the citizen in the government. So that was a lot of information. I want to break this down a little bit. Look at this last paragraph here. It says that the Constitution has checks and balances. So it divides this power in government, and it ensures that no branch has too much power. Well, we talked about this before. Think back to previous lessons. We have 3 branches of government. Think in your head, do you know what those are? One is judicial, one is legislative, and the last one is executive. Give yourself a pat on the back if you were able to remember those 3. That is what our Constitution was designed to do. It was written so that no part of the government, not even the president, could have too much power. So they broke it into branches so all this responsibility and power is shared. If we look at this picture here, this is a picture of the United States Constitution. Not the smiling kids right here, but this very old document that is a picture of the U.S. Constitution. We're going to watch a short video here with some more information about the Constitution.
The United States Constitution was a set of rules and ideals that the Constitutional Convention put together. It stated how the government was to be organized and run. The Constitutional Convention included representatives from each colony, and they met at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Some familiar names of representatives you might recognize are George Washington and Ben Franklin. Each colony's representatives had to agree or ratify the new Constitution in order for it to go into effect. It took 4 months for the representatives to agree on a final version of the Constitution. The first colony to ratify the Constitution was Delaware on December 7, 1787. By June 21, 1788, 9 states had ratified the Constitution, and it went into effect. Not all representatives liked the Constitution. Some were put off by the phrase, "we the people." They didn't like that this document could take away each state's identity. After the Constitution took effect, the Bill of Rights was formed, and this made people more comfortable. The Bill of Rights was a series of amendments to the Constitution that further explained rights of people and the operations of government.
So a lot of great information there as well. And we're going to continue our discussion on the U.S. Constitution in my notability. This is the assignment that you guys will be participating in today. So I'm going to read the directions. The United States Constitution is a set of laws and rules that guide how the United States government is run. The Constitution explains the jobs and power of each part of the federal government and states the basic right of the U.S. citizens. So again, the Constitution is a document, it is a piece of paper that is our foundation of our nation. Our rules, our laws that we follow as citizens are outlined, which means they are written in the U.S. Constitution. So that way everybody knows what is expected of them in our nation, what we can do and what we can't do. The Constitution was designed to be flexible and change throughout the years as the needs of the citizens changed. Just like the laws of the United States, your family has a set of rules you must live by. Below, you are going to describe how those rules have changed and might change in the future as you grow and change. So this is very important because this is going to actually lead into our lesson tomorrow about making amendments. Amendment is a change. So our Constitution was made by our founding fathers so that we could change it if we needed to. Because remember, when the Constitution was being made, many of the things we have today, they did not have back then. So they made it flexible. So if we needed to make changes, we could. You're going to put yourself in this position, and you are going to write me a couple sentences about how rules in your life have changed from the past to where they are now and how you think they could change in the future. So you're going to have 3 different examples here, and I'm going to help you out. So your first question or your first sentence is going to be a rule that you had at least 1 year ago. So that's going to be your first step here. So maybe my rule was I had to go to bed by 8 o'clock. My lines are a little crooked. That's okay. I had to go to bed by 8 o'clock p.m. 1 year ago. that was my bedtime. So I just had my that's 2 sentences. And then you're going to have a spot number 2. Spot number 2, you are going to say, how did that rule change? And what is it today? So you will have to pick a rule that you had in your family that you can think of and say, okay, 1 year ago, it was this. Now my rule is this. And in the future, this is what I think it will be. So you're going to have to think ahead a little bit. So how did this rule change and what is it today? So today, my bedtime is 9:00 p.m. My parents changed my rule. I'm going to say change this rule so I can stay up later than I could 1 year ago. So again, that's 2 sentences. That's what you're going to be looking for each passage here, or each little paragraph. And then number 3, what do you think that rule will be? Let's say 5 years from now. So most of you will be like 14, right around there. So we're like 14 or 13 in about 5 years. So what do you think that rule will be 5 years from now? Maybe if you're 14, I think when I am 14, the rule will be that I can stay up until maybe 10:30 p.m. We're getting a little late. I could stay up until 10:30. I would be very happy about this rule. All right, so that is what you will be expected to complete. This top portion here, you will not need to write that in here. That will already be in your paper for you. So that will be there. What you need to do then is write 2 sentences for each of these sections. So it has to be a rule that you can say, okay, a year ago this was my rule. Now this is my rule today, and then in 5 years. And I want it to be a very similar rule, like either what time you go to bed, or how much TV you can watch, how much time you get on your iPad, things like that. I don't want us to say, okay, number 1 year ago I had to go to bed at 8 o'clock. And then number 2, you say, well, right now I get to watch TV whenever I want. Those don't really go together. So I really want it to follow the same rule, but you're just saying how it changes throughout your life. All right? If you have any questions about this, you can either message one of your teachers and we will help you out. So let's look back real quick at how do we examine sources. We looked at our U.S. Constitution today, and I hope you can answer some of these questions from our lesson today. All right? So we will revisit this throughout the week because we are not done with this page. But I am done with my lesson today. So again, this is your assignment. Do not forget to complete this in Notability and then submit this back into Schoology when you are done. All right, guys, have a great day.